So I get up today, and there's tons of states that still are counting. Now, we used to, 20 years ago, make fun of Florida. And for at least the next two elections, I would have a habit of saying, Florida, Florida, don't screw it up. Now Florida seems to have the best system out there. I mean, they count them quickly, accurately, and last night was a blowout in Florida. But we're still waiting. We don't even know for sure if we have control of Congress.
Yeah, the House is not a completely sure thing. Republicans would be the favorites there. But
like
not
a
sure
99% favorite or like a 60% favorite?
No, let me give you a top line thing. Okay. From the prediction markets here. As we've gone through and settled through all the results and tried to sort through what the heck happened last night.
Yeah.
A Democratic sweep right now, according to betting markets, Democratic House, Democratic Senate, 14% chance of that happening.
Okay.
Okay.
All right.
Republican House and Senate, the Republican sweep we kind of all hoped for going into the evening, a 15% chance of happening right now. The most likely outcome, a Republican House, a Democratic Senate, 73% chance. Now, there's a little bit of some rounding in there, so it's not going to add up exactly, but that you get the sense as to where people are looking. The people who actually bet their own money on this stuff are saying, this is where we see this right now. So if you look at these races, a lot of this is going to count on, and I know exactly how people are going to feel when I say this, but very close House races in states like California. Races where Republicans look to have a lead, but we're not going to know for sure, possibly for a while. When it comes to House control, you're looking at something probably in the low 220s. Now you need 218 for control, low 220s. So kind of a reverse of what we've had for the past 2 years, where very narrow control except by the Republicans instead of the Democrats. That's huge, assuming it holds. It can block multiple trillions of dollars of spending, you know, the Build Back Better acts and the Green New Deals and all these things they try to jam through with 50 seats in the Senate. They can't get them through if just the House holds. So that's very, very big. On the Senate side, though, it's a lot harder to come up with the scenario where they can win, though it does exist, and we'll go through it here in a minute. But that's where you're talking about Supreme Court seats and things like that, which will be very, very problematic as
very,
go forward.
Bad. Very bad. Okay.
Should we go through some of these races and how everything went last night?
First, I'd like to know how off were the polls? Because it seems like they were very off.
I mean, the polls had a pretty good night. The polls had a pretty good night.
Good. That's good.
I mean, you know,
except for Arizona seems.
No, I don't think. Again, Arizona. I think we all think Carrie Lake is great. We love her. She's a very talented politician. But people took the 11-point poll that came out a couple weeks before the election as gospel as to where that race stood.
Yeah,
that is not where the majority of the polling had it. The final Real Clear Politics average was Carrie Lake by 3.5. Now, look,
so
we're still at a point where Carrie Lake can pull this out. I think, you know, that's a...
She's ahead at this point, is she not?
She's not ahead in the current count. But that is not to be... This is, again, you were mentioning Florida. Florida counts these votes. We knew it would happen last night. It was amazing. It was how it was supposed to exist, right? You're supposed to be able to see results like that. You remember the two highlight races from the 2020 election. Pennsylvania, Donald Trump out to a big lead, starts whittling away throughout the night, over the overnight, and all of a sudden you wake up and Joe Biden's winning, right? We all remember that. What people don't tend to remember as much is the exact opposite happened in Arizona, where Joe Biden was out to a big lead. Trump started whittling away at that. If you remember, famously, Fox News called Arizona early, and then it got so close, Trump almost won it. The same thing is happening in Arizona right now, where all night, if people were looking at the results, it was like, oh my gosh, Carrie Lake's down by 13 points. What's going on? And that continues to narrow as we go.
Do you know how many, how much is in Maricopa County?
I can give you that number. I don't have it in front of me.
Okay.
But here's where we stand right now. Katie Hobbs, 50.9% of the vote. Kari Lake, 49.1% of the vote. So it's already narrowed dramatically from where we were talking about last night.
Yeah.
An interesting thing, if you want to get an indication, the New York Times makes real-time projections on how much of the vote is left in each of these states. So they were looking at this all night, and they didn't do it for the governors, but they did do it for the Senate. Now, in the Senate, they have Blake Masters, who is still a race that we're too close to call, but favored. Their last projection at about 4 a.m. was that Masters was going to lose by 2.8 points. Okay, that's an important number to remember
because that's about where the polls had been the whole time.
Yeah,
and
Masters got a couple late polls that were better than that, but
but it's still within the margin of error,
right around there. Now, so what's the split between these two candidates? Right now, Mark Kelly in the current count is up by 6 over Masters, 6 points. The difference over in the gubernatorial race is 1.8. So throughout the entire night, that split between Lake and Masters was about 4 points. It went up to 5 at some points, went down a little bit below 4, but right around 4 points. If that final New York Times projection is correct and Masters loses by 2.8, that would indicate that Lake will come back and squeak this one out. Now, that's a projection built on top of a projection, so you should not take that to the bank. Do not bet your money on it.
Right.
But it's not at all out of the question that Kari Lake can win this race. In fact, you could look at it and say, if you had to pick one of these two candidates to be, Hobbs or Lake, you might want to be Lake right now. So that's a positive. Masters is the opposite. You'd probably want to be Kelly in this race in Arizona, but it's going to be super tight. No, okay.
No, I wouldn't want to be Kelly.
Okay, that's a good point.
No, I wouldn't want to be Kelly.
Now, a couple of the other big. So a lot of the races went the way we thought they would go.
Yeah.
I was looking at my final.
We were hoping. We said yesterday, we kept coming back and going, I want to give it to them. I want to give it to them.
Right.
But we were split on, I don't know exactly what's going to happen. And I think what we hoped did not happen. What we all kind of had a gut feeling might happen, happened.
Yeah, we were hoping for some big red tsunami.
Yeah.
Did not think that was going to happen, and it didn't.
Boy, thought it was going to happen when you saw early on Florida. You're like, holy cow.
Yeah, and it's interesting. One of the things you do as you're analyzing elections in real time is you look at results that come in from these early states that are competent in counting their vote, like Florida. And you can take indications from that, generally speaking, as to the entire climate. You look at this and you say, okay, well, Florida is going really, really red. We didn't expect it to be this red. Perhaps we're in a year where we're going to be more red than the polls.
Mm-hmm.
And you start thinking, okay, wow, this could look really good. And you didn't realize, what we wound up finding out is it was just Florida. I mean, it was really, the rest of it went.
That is the story. Yeah. The story is 20 points. That's the big, we believe, the biggest margin ever in Florida.
Absolutely incredible. I mean, even the outlier polls for DeSantis were DeSantis plus 15.
Yeah.
Which was out of the norm. I mean, they missed, the polls did miss in Florida. Yeah. Republicans outperformed their polls. The Florida story is a massive story that we're going to be getting into for the next couple of years, I imagine.
History was set in Florida in a couple ways. 20 points, largest spread ever. And 2, no one has ever lost as a Republican, a Democrat, and an independent. Ever. Okay? And Charlie Crist made that happen.
You know, I knew Charlie Crist was special.
He was. And now we know why. Special. He is special.
Now we know why. But I mean, it's interesting because of all the races we talked about yesterday, the only one that I had leaning Republican that has been called at this point was Pennsylvania, which is a whole. We should be doing weeks of shows to discuss the mental issues that must lead to putting this man in the Senate. The fact that Pennsylvania will be punished by him representing them may be the worst punishment of all for that vote.
Because we're punished by it,
we get punished by it, too. It's
we
incredible.
Get punished by it, too. Look at it. Here's the thing that I think we should take away. Red states got redder. Blue states got bluer. Don't you think?
Yeah.
Nothing, no minds were really, except for Florida, no minds were really changed. Everything is just really, really close.
And the purple stuff stayed purple.
Yeah.
You know, for the most part. You know, with the exception of Florida, which now looks all of a sudden like the most Republican. It's more red than like Wyoming. That's apparently the
It's more red than Texas, certainly.
No, Texas actually, Abbott did really well. I mean,
he did, but
he won by 12 points, right?
I mean,
that
the
was the last I
spirit
saw.
of Texas is in Florida now.
I still love Texas, but I love Florida too. I love you in Florida, but I think there is the Texas story was a little interesting on the border. One thing that Beto maybe did. Maybe a replacement level candidate that couldn't raise money, which is the only thing that Beto is good at. Maybe that candidate loses by 16 instead of 12, and those border districts, many of them wound up going back to the Democrats. There was that hope that this movement among Hispanics. On the Republican side was a real thing. And what we saw is it's there, but it's maybe not as prominent as some of the polling showed.
Well, the good news is everything that I thought was a bad thing that has happened politically in this country has ended up being a good thing. For instance, if we had Donald Trump, I wouldn't wish for this. I didn't hope for this. I didn't celebrate. When Donald Trump lost, I thought, oh, dear heavens. However, because he lost, the Republicans, I think, not the Republicans, I can't say that, the people who generally vote for the Republicans woke up. We are seeing activism and the school boards. We're seeing the wave did happen at the school board level. It's happening.
There's a lot there.
Yeah.
A lot to celebrate there. There's some good gubernatorial wins.
And so we are waking up to take our states back, which is the real key. Our local elections and our state elections, we are taking those back.
It's important to remember, even if the Senate does fall, which is not a sure thing. We can go through the outstanding races here and where we stand on that. But like, if you can get the House, this is not a catastrophe. If you lose both, it is a catastrophe. There is a chance here, by the way. We should all recognize this possibility. There is a chance in the Senate that we've got weeks and weeks more of this because there's a chance that Republicans get to 50 seats, need one more, and Georgia goes to a runoff on December 6th. And we're going to have election week becomes election month.
How did neither of them get 50%?
A Libertarian had a couple percent. That's basically what it was. It was like I think Warnock's at 49.4 right now. If he gets to 50, then there will be no runoff. He's up by about a point over Walker. Now, the dynamic changes in a runoff, especially if the entire Senate is up. If that's the race that's going to decide the Senate, you poor people in Georgia will never see anything but a political commercial.
They'll start canceling the TV shows just to put commercials on. It'll be
unbelievable.
You're in for torture. Sorry.
If you enjoyed this video, hit like and subscribe to our channel so you'll be sure to see similar videos from Blaze TV with the added bonus of signaling YouTube that your voice and opinion still matters. And if you're looking for more great conservative content, check out one of the 2 videos suggested here.